Time now for a look at what's been grabbing the headlines in the international press this Friday morning. For that, I'm joined once again on set by Clément Bonnereau. And of course, you're starting out with that big G7 summit taking place in Sicily.
That's right, and Donald Trump will be attending his first G7 summit as US president. And as The Guardian writes, he brings uncertainty and risk. Multilateral meetings do not seem to be his natural habitat. The G7 summit is likely to involve long, unstructured discussions with few specific deals to be made. No one at this point can predict the span of his concentration or even what state secrets he might divulge.
There are, of course, several issues on which Donald Trump, US president, and the other delegates taking part in the summit that they disagree on.
That's right. Donald Trump holds radically different views on climate change. He says he wants to backtrack on the Paris climate agreement. And also on trade, the US president has repeatedly said he wants to put America first and implement protectionist policies in the US, raising concerns, of course, among America's trade partners.
Of course, Donald Trump isn't the only new kid on the block taking part in this summit this Friday.
That's right. 4 of the group's leaders will be attending for the first time. Donald Trump, French President Emmanuel Macron, British Prime Minister Theresa May and Italian Prime Minister Paolo Gentiloni. All have very different styles, the Globe and Mail writes. Macron is likely to receive a warm welcome. He's pro-Europe, pro-trade and the youngest leader to attend.
Of course, we're hearing that the stakes are particularly high for the Italian Prime Minister. He's been working on a rather Pacific communique for a few months now.
That's right. According to Swiss paper Le Temps, the Italian G7 presidency has made migration a top priority. Paolo Gentiloni wants to convince other G7 leaders to help him stem the flow of migrants crossing the Mediterranean by investing in Africa's development. Recent figures show that refugee numbers have risen by 44% this year, with more than 45,000 migrants arriving in Italy during the first 4 months of 2017.
And Clément, leaders in Sicily just have 2 days to hammer out all these issues. How likely is it that they'll find common ground on this refugee issue?
According to Foreign Policy, it's not very likely. The magazine reveals that one of Donald Trump's closest advisors, Stephen Miller, he's the man behind Trump's infamous Muslim ban, has worked hard to prevent any kind of agreement from emerging on that issue.
It's been, of course, one of our main stories all week. That's the deadly bombing in Manchester. How likely is it that attack will overshadow the proceedings there in Sicily across the next 2 days?
Italian daily La Stampa reports that this week's G7 summit comes at a time of great geopolitical instability and writes that Monday night's attack in Manchester does not allow indecision. Italians want G7 countries to tackle the root causes of radicalisation, using culture as a tool to fight terrorism.
Of course, the British Prime Minister Theresa May is also likely to be confronting the US President Donald Trump over American media leaks following the bombing. Of course, the New York Times had posted rather sensitive photographs of the aftermath of the bombing earlier this week.
That's right. It's not entirely clear who's responsible for this leak, but according to The Guardian, the rift between the Trump administration and US intelligence services contributed to the leaks. Trump famously doesn't get on with the intelligence community, and there is a lack of coordination between the White House and spy agencies.
Of course, the relationship between London and Washington has always been rather valued as a very special relationship. How might this affect that?
That's right. Well, Britain and the US briefly stopped sharing information on Thursday. Now, as for the special relationship between Theresa May and Donald Trump, there's this cartoon in the Telegraph. You can see May pulling Trump's tie, slapping him with her purse, and messing his hair up, leaving him with bruises and a black eye.
Clément Bonnereau, that's all we have time for the International Press Review. Thank you very much for joining us.